How do you mount your watercolor on cradled panel? So in my studio today, we are going to be going through how we mount our watercolors on cradled panel. Now, I happen to have a nice small watercolor here. It's going to exhibition, and I'm going to be showing you how you want to prepare your painting. One of the things you're going to need is a spray-on fixative. I used a Krylon UV Matte finish, and I spray this to help protect my painting for the process that we'll be undertaking together. Now, with your birch cradle panel here, so this is my 7x10 cradle panel. We're going to be preparing the surface of the cradle panel with some gesso first. So it's going to help protect the painting, especially if there's any acid in here that's going to leach out into the painting. So you don't want that to happen. It's also going to set you up for sticking the painting on with your heavy matte gel. After that's done, I use my wax medium here. This is the Dolan's wax medium, which I use to protect my painting's surface. Okay, so if you're ready, let's go. The first part of the process is super easy. I'm just using a paintbrush from the DIY store. I'm just going to check my gesso. Okay, so my gesso is going to need a little bit of a stir because it's separating. So I've just got a little cake spatula here. And I'm just going to give that a quick mix. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to use a spatula and get it onto the surface of my gesso board. And I'm just going to watch the edges because I don't want gesso on the edges of the board because I want to keep the edges natural. You just want a nice coverage over the surface here. If you wanted to, you could gesso the whole thing and you can have white edges. You can also paint your edges. I've been known to paint my edges before with almost like a gold or acrylic. But in this case, I am just going to leave it natural. And I am painting it this way because, like I said earlier, I want to preserve the natural edges of the birch cradle panel. And I don't want it to go over the edge, just to the edge. Something that I have done with my framing is I've used floater frames to kind of just give my painting just that little extra presence. There you go. Easy peasy. We're just going to let this dry and then we're going to be ready to put the heavy gel matte medium over the top and then we're going to stick it down with some weight. So let's go clean our brushes. Let's let this dry and I'll see you shortly. So now that your cradle panel is dry, we're going to put some heavy extra gel medium on here. I want a little bit of spatula. Another thing that you're going to need is a little bit of parchment paper. And I also have 2 brayers. One is to apply the matte gel medium on, and the other one is to brayer down the canvas here. Okay. So for this part, I am taking a good dollop of the heavy gel matte medium. And I'm going to flip this around so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So on here, I have my gel matte medium. And I am going to be just putting this on with a spatula. I think that should be enough for now. And then I'm getting a brayer. And I am just going to spread this on. I might have a little bit too much. But can you see how it's peaking? That's a good sign that you have enough on. If you don't have the peaking of the medium, you're going to find that your watercolor may not stick down well, and you really want to make sure it's in the corners. And you're going to have to work quickly. You see that texture with your gel matte medium? That's what you want to see. With that, you're going to get your painting and you're going to just pop her on top. And make sure she touches the edges. This is going to be a little bit of a tight fit. I may not actually have any room, but once you stick it on, it's kind of stuck, right? So you don't have a lot of room to play with. You just have to kind of get it right. So I would advise practice with something that's not as important if this is your first time. Hopefully you're okay. So I think nicely. I'm getting my parchment paper now, and with the clean brayer, I'm just going to make sure that I'm getting any air bubbles out. I can also do a visual check with clean hands. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put my parchment paper on top, and I'm going to flip it on a flat surface. I'm going to put weights down here, like maybe some cast iron pans. I'm going to leave it for about 12 hours minimum to dry, and then we're going to take care of the edges in the morning. Okay, welcome back. So now that we have left the painting to dry overnight, it has glued perfectly all the way around. There are parts of the painting where the paper is overlapping the cradle panel. So what we'll need to do for this stage is we'll need a cutting board, and we'll need one of these X-Acto knives to trim off the excess paper. And then after that, we'll also employ this sandpaper just to smooth out some of those edges if we need to. And then the final step, we'll need a kind of one of those lint-free cloths, and we'll have some Dolan's wax medium, and we're going to be waxing the surface of the painting. So let's have a look at my table, and you can see what I'm doing. All right, so this painting is beautifully glued on. There are just like the tiniest little edges where it can be trimmed just so that the painting is completely flush against the cradle panel. Now, in case they didn't do this with you in school, I will go over it with you now. You do really want a very sharp edge or sharp blade to do this, and you don't want to press too hard. And you want to align the blade to be not pointed as a tip, but almost parallel or as parallel to the surface of the table. And we don't want to press too hard, because if you press too hard, you risk an uneven surface to be cut. So really light pressure, and we just want to score on that edge and take off the excess paper. Don't rip it off like a scab or anything. Otherwise, you may damage the surface of the painting. There's a part of this where the, the glue has formed along, so it's not completely smooth. So that's where we employ the sandpaper just to even out those visual irregularities. This one is almost completely flush, so that's fine. This one only really minor, and some of it is just the glue. Remember, don't press too hard. Just let the blade do the work. Ideally, most of the time you want a little bit more margin than this. I put that blade away, and then I can still feel there's a little bit of excess paper that needs to go off in here. And part of the difficulty cutting this part, maybe I didn't do this side. That's why. Try not to press too hard. Let the blade do the work. I'm not going to rip it off. Just let the blade take it off. So you get a nice clean line. That's all. Cut through.
Where's Dolan?
Perfect. So that is nice and flush now. This side needs it's a little bit irregular. So usually for this, I don't want to be too scrappy, but I want to move it in the direction of the painting this way, because I don't want to scuff it up this way. So I'm moving it down. Just checking that is even. It's a little bit here as well. You may not be able to see on the camera, is it? Any edges where you have paint on, you can also sandpaper those out. The last stage of this, we're going to take some of our Dolan's wax medium. And I'm just going to take this lint-free cloth, which is like my little waxing cloth. And we are going to just take a little bit, and we are going to, in circular motions, wax on, wax off. That's what we're going to do. where we are applying the wax in small circular motions across the painting. You should be able to feel whether you have any wax there because there's no friction. If you're feeling too much friction, you need to grab more wax. And then after this, you want to let it dry for about an hour. And then you can put another layer on. Just have a feel of it. You can feel whether it's like a little bit too tacky to do that. You can give it an extra day if you want to. And this wax will help protect the painting from any water damage, any splashy, like raindrops or anything like that. The wax will not or should not yellow. So there you go. Now, this is just a small piece, so it's going to be a little bit easier for me to assess whether we covered the whole surface. But I would just give it a little tilt and just find the right light to see whether you have indeed covered all of that, which I have. And so there you go. I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to let it dry and wax it all over. And then I'll show you how to hook up the back panel very shortly. And now for the last part, we're going to make this hangable. So sometimes I like to work on it just to make sure my painting is protected. So I just get a clean piece of parchment paper for this to face down onto, like so. So we're just remembering this is the top of the painting and which one's the bottom of the painting. So we're going to flip that. So the orientation remains the same. Now, many galleries have a specific way that they like things hung. I think this is a 10-inch high cradled panel. It is. Now, most like to have the panel hung 1/3 down. So I'm just going to grab a pencil and I'm going to mark it about 1/3 down. So it's approximately, I'm just marking it 3.5, which is almost 1/3 down, but not exactly 1/3 down. I have these little D-ring hook things. So I will screw those in like so around that mark area. If you wanted to be super fancy as well, you can also install a floater frame around your paintings, and they also look great when you do that as well. I will also say that your frame should be around about at least 1.5 inches. That is the typical size for a gallery depth frame. If it's too thin, they may ask you to put a floater frame on it to, give it more substance and professionalism. All right. And for the hanging wire, I use vinyl coated hanging wire. Again, it's one of those requirements some galleries have because volunteers or people who work there will end up getting really sore fingers handling uncoated wire. For this part of the process, I do have these little, I don't know what you call them, but you have to clamp them down. They're these like little figure 8 things, and I'll just put one through for now. And this is the secret. You go up, down, through the thing. Now, the first time we went up through the D-ring hook, so now we have to go down through the D-ring hook. And then over that part. So you might have to play that again to kind of get the feel of it. I'm going to thread this little clamp thing through. I wish I knew the words for stuff, but I don't know the words for things. And then with that, we will clamp this puppy down to secure it. And this will manipulate the clasp in such a way that it now secures it and these parts won't move. I'm going to measure out for this part. So this will give me sufficient length to work with. Don't cut your fingers off. I'm going to thread this little clampy thing through again. And we'll repeat so you understand the process. You go up, over, and then you have to go under. Because you went up first, you have to go down. And then in this case, it will be through. So when you pull it, it gets to look a little bit like so. All right. And then with that, you thread this the remaining part of the wires through the little clasp thing. And hold it nice and tight. Secure it. I find it easier to clasp one end first and then the other instead of the whole object because my hands are only so strong. And then with the excess, you just clip those off. Perfect. And there you have it. So here it is in the sunlight. It's looking beautiful with lovely matte finish. And if you wanted to, you could also buff it up a little bit for more of a satin finish. And so hopefully this video was helpful for you. If there's anything else you want to know, let me know in the comments. And feel free to like and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.